Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur, sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Does he even listen to the intelligence community? Is he reading his PDB? Does he have any of this information? He's tweeting about South Africa.
But why wouldn't
because Tucker Carlson's doing a segment on it. Why not call up your Secretary of State and say, hey, listen, is what Tucker Carlson is saying on Fox News actually true? Is that what really is going on?
Maybe
if it is, let's do something about it.
He doesn't want to believe that it's not true. That's the thing we've seen all along.
It's not fitting his narrative. So when intelligence and briefings don't fit his narrative, he doesn't want to hear that.
Is it his narrative, or is the only way he's able to consume it through a segment on television?
Well, perhaps his morning brief should be done through a TV network and during his executive time in the residence.
But that's what's happening. A lot of his aides go on television to talk to him. Listen to this, also from the Washington Post. Aides in turn try to influence the cable hosts who influence the president. When Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin led a delegation to China in May, he announced on Fox News Sunday that the United States was putting the trade war on hold. But soon after, others in the delegation, including China hawk Peter Navarro, found an alternative audience with Dobbs to criticize Mnuchin's message. Then Dobbs' criticism were picked up on Fox and Friends the following day by host Brian Kilmeade. Before long, and on the basis of those media messages, the president made an abrupt change in policy.
Well, this is a huge governing problem, but it's also a fascinating phenomenon because the other people that are in this Fox bubble, of course, are his supporters because that's their sole source of news in many instances. So anything that's real does seem fake. It's completely out of the blue. They've never heard about this before. It can't possibly be true. So together, they're in this collective never land as they construct these formulas, narratives that go on and on. Why do they think that immigration is a huge problem, that millions are pouring over the border when, in fact, we have net immigration going towards Mexico? It's because it's on Fox News constantly. It's either an illegal immigrant hurting someone, and we do know that immigrants commit crimes at lower rates, or it's
people born here.
Yeah, that people born here. But that's the universe in which they inhabit. And so not only, I think, does he not read, and we know that, and does not, we now know that they basically reduce everything to a bullet point. And if the bullet points are too long, he won't even read that. So he doesn't absorb information very well at all, let alone reading it. But I think the bigger issue is he doesn't want to live in the real world. The real world doesn't think he's a good president. The real world sees that he's messing up right and left. The real world sees he may have committed crimes.
So what his advisors will say is, listen, the fact that he watches so much Fox News and parrots what they say on television shows that he's really in touch with Americans and the way Americans consume information and the way Americans think.
Sure, that shows that he's in touch with his base of Americans. But I think, frankly, his ego can't handle any kind of reality. And so we saw that. I mean, what better example is there than the flag fiasco with Senator John McCain? I mean, how small of a person do you have to be, truly, to not honor that man who served this country honorably, first in Vietnam and then in the Senate, because he was had political differences with you.
But it's before that. He said he wasn't a war hero in 2000 right. When he was talking. I believe it was 2000 when he was talking Tim Russer. So that thing that he said in 2015 did not come out of the blue.
No, same fragile ego.
Yeah, Mike, I wanna let you jump in.
No, and who's he talking to and who's he listening to? This world of aging, angry white guys. And you just want to say to him sometimes, Mr. President, dude, this stuff's going to rot your brain. Catch a ball game once in a while. Go to a movie. Because if you constantly listen...
Does he like sports?
Well, he used to like football. Well, he used to like football until they wouldn't let him into the NFL, and now, of course, he's on record as hating it.
Oh, gosh. Wait, one more thing. Frank Figliuzzi, the FBI came out and had to rebuke the president, had to say, no, that is not true. That doesn't happen often.
Yeah, so it doesn't, and it's a refreshing sign, but equally I'm still depressed because that means the president isn't paying any attention to findings that came out long ago about Hillary's emails. There was no evidence or conclusion that China hacked them or that they were compromised.
It is Thursday, the 30th of August of 2018, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam, and our daily special is Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. It almost feels like the Last Supper, doesn't it? Doesn't it feel like, 11:58, 59 on the world clock that counts down the actual complete demise of the world as we know it? Oh, yeah, that's great. So, please, this may be your last chance at anything that might be considered, other than white bread, biscuits, and gravy. That's all you get from now on. No jambalaya. No more spice of life. And Lester Holt apparently doctored that video to make it look like Trump confessed to firing Comey because of the Russia thing. What I want to know is that Donnie 2 Scoops, or is it Donnie 2 Minutes, is just finding out now? And his deplorable base will just go along with it? Oh, yeah. It's been quite a while since that tape has been out. And they're just now finding out it was doctored. And Donnie said, oh, wow, that was so good. Even I thought I said that. When Alex Jones has your ear, strange things can happen. And, but I could also, make mention of the fact that none of this exists. None of this maelstrom of chaos exists until the people on the playa find out about it. Then reality will come to the fore. That was quite a departure. I do it quite often here. I guess I'm allowed. It's my salon. Yeah, well, look. As stated at the top, watching too much Fox News will rot your brain. It'll rot your brain so much that you'll have the guy from InfoWars coming in and saying, oh yeah, just tell people it was doctored. See, it is. I'll show you. And the deplorable base will say, yeah, it was. Those damn liberal witches. We have to kill them. Because apparently Donnie 2 Minutes is calling for violent insurrection against anyone who goes against him. And he's called on his deplorable SA brown shirt Gestapo base. Well, they're not really the Gestapo, but they are the brown shirts, the shock troops. To go out and basically beat the crap out of the Jews. The brown people, the liberals, the women. As you probably know or don't know, I did major in constitutional history as part of my educational background at university. And I went back over my notes, and I went back over papers that I wrote, and it caused me to dive into deeper research into the Constitution and its history, and I can't find anywhere in the Constitution, and you can look. There's nothing in the Constitution that says that you cannot incarcerate a sitting president and then, tar and feather him, throw him in some sort of glass cage, put him on public display for ridicule. It doesn't say anything in the Constitution about that. Now, my understanding, if it doesn't say anything explicitly against that, then I suppose we can do it, and we better. Okay, we'll put a cap on how much public display it is. We'll do it, I don't know, regular business hours in D.C. Try this brain exercise. Say, for instance, Obama wanted to keep like an FBI building, for instance, maybe, from being built across the street from your Russian money laundering operation. And then Obama got his inspector general to, made it so that inspector general wasn't able to find out. And then put pressure on that inspector general when they did. I just have a hard time imagining what might happen if Obama had done that. Try that brain exercise, please. What's on the rest of the menu? In the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, well, Trump and his government are now using birtherism against Hispanic Americans, taking their passports away, and, they don't live here. A former DHS official had ties to white nationalist groups, and Trump is busted promoting a fake story about Google blacking out his State of the Union address. Just like he got busted with this Lester Holt charge. Yeah, Lester Holt. Doesn't he? I thought he was in TV. I thought he ran some sort of reality TV thing. Where they have writers and they act out these conflicts. Reality TV. That's your tell right there. So you would think that he knows the difference between, talent and production. Talent doesn't fudge the tape. Talent doesn't doctor the tape. Lester Holt is talent. He's in front of the camera. The people behind the camera are the ones that do that. You would think he would know that, being in TV and being such an astute TV person as he is. After the break, we then move to the chef's table, where Bob Mueller is probing suspicious financial transactions made by the Russian embassy around the election and then the inauguration. Where did all that inaugural money come from anyway? And where did it go? And while no one was watching, Democrats just got a massive electoral opening in Oklahoma. Red Sooner, Oklahoma. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice to the rightish of the page the chat room link monitored by Kelly Link, and she's there quite diligently to monitor the chat room for your chat room pleasure. Not there 24/7 because she's actually a real person, so give her that. She has to breathe and eat and pay the bills. And speaking of which, she, as I've mentioned before, still affecting the final push to upgrade and install hardware, software, and she needs that to be able to do the broadcasts and the resistance radio that we need to resist. And if you could push some money her way, that would be absolutely fabulous. To the leftish of the chat room link at the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com are the contribute donate buttons, and that is a very integral part of this operation. That is how we pay our bills, and we are unable to do this without you, and we just so truly, and I don't mean to joke around about this. Your generosity is heartfelt and appreciated, okay? So thank you very much. The lights are a-blinking. And we continue to resist out there where the world needs some resistance, which is quite a bit these days. You can follow Netroots Radio on Twitter at Netroots Radio. We're over on Facebook, too. The Facebook Live thing's happening, and check that out. You can follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam, all one word. And I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime, and I'm there as Justice Department. Or you can also look for the Justice Department on netrootsradio.com. Let's see. Oh, why not follow the show on Facebook? We're over there. And on Twitter, our handle is at Cookbook West. So that is the anomaly that, I made a mistake. And there it is. And finally, podcasts of the show can be had by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iTunes, YouTube, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, this first article is by Kylie Joey Gray. We like her. As soon as I get back into the swing of things, I will be doing interviews, as I did in a previous incarnation for so many years. But as we're stabilizing the radio station, right now interviews are on the back burner, but I need to get Kylie back on again. You know, Trump used to say that even a birth certificate doesn't prove you're really an American citizen. Now his government is putting that into action. And Kylie is running for Share Blue Media these days. So Trump rose to political prominence by insisting that if your race makes you suspect in his eyes, nothing, not even your birth certificate, can prove you are really an American. That was the ugly and plainly racist argument he made for years to undermine and attack President Barack Obama. Now his government is enforcing that policy against thousands. Hundreds of thousands? How many? We're still finding out. And that would be of Hispanic citizens, Americans, Hispanic Americans. In a bombshell report by the Washington Post, the State Department, Trump's State Department, is denying passports to American citizens, accusing them of not really being citizens. The Trump administration is accusing possibly thousands of Hispanics along the border of using fraudulent birth certificates since they were babies. And it is undertaking a widespread crackdown on their citizenship. American citizens trying to renew their passports are being told to provide further evidence of their citizenship under the government's suspicion that their birth certificates are fraudulent. One former soldier the Post spoke with was ordered by the State Department to provide a range of obscure documents, evidence of his mother's prenatal care, his baptismal certificate, rental agreements from when he was a baby. A subsequent letter informed him the documentation he provided did not establish your birth in the United States. And the government isn't stopping at simply denying passports, however. In some cases, passport applicants with official U.S. birth certificates are being jailed in immigration detention centers and entered into deportation proceedings. Other American citizens are finding themselves stranded in other countries, unable to return to the U.S. God, it so sounds much better in the German, doesn't it? The practice of denying passports to citizens suspected of having fraudulent birth certificates actually started long before Trump took office. The federal government accused certain midwives and doctors in Texas's Rio Grande Valley of providing false birth certificates to babies born on the Mexican side of the border. And some practitioners admitted to doing so in federal court cases. But as the Washington Post notes, they also delivered thousands of babies legally in the U.S. One midwife, for example, delivered 600 babies in Texas, but admitted to providing false documentation in two cases. However, Many of the other citizens she delivered are also now being denied passports. It makes a sick kind of sense, of course. Trump and his administration are openly hostile toward immigrants in general and towards Latinos in particular. That those born near the border might now be suspect in the eyes of Trump's government is not surprising. It is, however, horrific. Trump's government is, of course, refusing to provide details about its practice. The State Department would not say how many passports it has denied to people along the border because of concerns about fraudulent birth certificates, the Post reports. The government has also refused to provide a list of midwives who it considers to be suspicious midwives or witches. Witchcraft. It's all an evil satanic plot to take over America and turn us over to the devil. Offering here in the Bistro Cafe, part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, is by Luke Barnes out of Think Progress. Newly unearthed emails show that former DHS official Ian M. Smith communicated with groups that included white nationalist figures like Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer. Fancy that. I mean, why else would Hispanics, brown people, be rounded up and thrown into deportation hearings? American citizens. The former immigration analyst at the Department of Homeland Security has been in regular email contact with groups that include well-known white nationalists and socialized with some of them in the run-up to the 2016 presidential election. Emails obtained by The Atlantic show that the analyst, Ian M. Smith, was privy and participated in white nationalist social events that included Spencer, as well as Jared Taylor, one of America's oldest and most prominent white nationalists. While the emails don't specifically show Spencer and Smith interacting, Smith clearly has an extensive familiarity with Spencer's projects. Now, I would think that some of these social events might include busty blonde girls, scantily clad in Nazi paraphernalia and uniforms, maybe. There's always something sexual about that, I guess. So it's not really about Nazism, okay? It's about the white nationalist, bigoted Nazi sex, and that's better. In another email from October 2015, or maybe not scantily clad women, maybe it could be crisply clad, Aryan-type men that turns the head. Could be. All right. Smith details in October of 2015 how he was planning to talk to people like Matt Parrott. Parrott was the former spokesperson for the Traditionalist Workers' Party, a prominent white nationalist group, which were present at the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. In March, however, the TWP were forced to disband after its leader, Matthew Heimbach, was arrested for assaulting Matt Parrott, who is also his father-in-law, after Parrott accused Heimbach of sleeping with his wife, which then I guess would be his mother-in-law. Wow. Now that shows some really good genetic makeup, doesn't it? While Smith was clearly not as involved in the far right as those with whom he associated, what makes his case disturbing is how established he is in the more traditional conservative class that currently fills out the ranks of the Trump administration. Smith has, for instance, repeatedly written for the National Review about immigration and appeared on Sean Hannity's radio show to complain about immigration from Muslim-dominated countries. Smith is far from the only administration official with questionable ties
to white nationalism. Earlier in August, it was revealed that White House speechwriter and policy aide Darren Beatty had spoken at the 2016 H.L. Macon Club Conference, an annual retreat regularly attended by white nationalists like Spencer and Taylor. And Beatty has since resigned. Also, it was revealed that same week that Trump's economic advisor, Larry Kudlow, Cocaine Larry, Sniffles, had invited Peter Brimlow, a publisher of white nationalist website Vidaire, to his home in for Kudlow's birthday party. Of course, Kudlow said that he was unaware of Brimlow's affiliations and was, quote, disappointed and saddened to hear about it. But boy, we had a good time. Smith reportedly quit the Department of Homeland Security on Tuesday after The Atlantic made the department aware of the emails. The Department of Homeland Security is committed to combating all forms of violent extremism, especially movements that espouse racial supremacy or bigotry, a DHS spokesman told The Atlantic with their fingers crossed behind their back. This type of radical ideology runs counter to the department's mission of keeping America safe. Both hands and fingers crossed behind the back. Chapman of Alternet brings us this last article here at the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Donald Trump has faced derision for his rant on Tuesday about Google search results being rigged against conservatives, likely motivated by a Fox Business interview between Lou Dobbs and the right-wing YouTube celebrities Diamond and Silk. Of course, InfoWars guy, he's putting his 2 cents in there also, saying, hey, I gave him the idea. It was me that gave him the idea. Yeah, all right. But Trump is eager to prove he is right about a grand Google conspiracy to silence right-wing content. As proof, he shared a video on Wednesday noting a key example of anti-GOP censorship, his own State of the Union address. For years, Google promoted President Obama's State of the Union on its homepage, says the video. When President Trump took office, Google stopped. There's just one problem. It is not true. Screenshots of Google's search page taken on January 30th, 2018 clearly show a link labeled Live. Watch President Trump's State of the Union address on YouTube. One of the screenshots was even posted by a Trump supporter to the pro-Trump Reddit board, the Donald, captioned, Google homepage linking to the GODES, God Emperor of the United States address. God Emperor. It is true that Google did not provide a link to Trump's first address to Congress in 2017. However, as a Google spokesman said, we have historically not promoted the first address to Congress by a new president, which is technically not a State of the Union address. As a result, we didn't include a promotion on Google.com for this address in either 2009 or 2017. Caught in a lie? It doesn't matter. Only John Barron can tell you the truth, not those anonymous sources that only say fiction. Only John Barron tells you the truth. Believe me. All right, let's get to our break. And, of course, when we come back, we will go through weather from around the world and finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. In the more than 150 years of European settlement of the British North American colonies, by 1776, Americans had developed many different ways of organizing local governments. For example, in Virginia, the House of Burgesses was composed of representatives elected by the Virginia colonists. The oldest representative assembly in the colonies, the House of Burgesses, had its origins in 1619. Only men who owned land could serve in the House of Burgesses. Each county in Virginia had 2 representatives. The House of Burgesses created legislation and addressed the concerns of the people. Virginia also had a governor appointed by the king and an appointed council of state, which had veto over any legislation. The other colonies had their own representative assemblies, and Americans gained experience with self-government before the Revolution. In the colonies, free white men could serve on juries, attend town meetings, and vote in local elections. With few exceptions, however, women, African Americans, Native Americans, and white men who did not own property were not allowed to vote. Despite this, more Americans participated in self-government than did people almost anywhere else in the world. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
You can help stop the Trump agenda in its tracks. Make sure you're registered to vote. Go to rockthevote.org And on November 6th, vote for Democrats up and down the ticket. This message, a public service from all the fine people of netrootsradio.com.
Does or should the government closely monitor you if, while you are on an airplane, you use a computer or you fidget, or according to some government bureaucrat, you have a cold, penetrating stare? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. We are talking about the Transportation Security Administration's, the TSA's, Quiet Skies program, a largely secret program that includes, according to a Boston Globe report, quote, extensive surveillance of domestic flyers who are not suspected of any crime and who are not on any terrorist watch list, but as noted, they might fidget or use a computer. On account of the TSA's Quiet Skies program, over 5,000 United States citizens have been subjected to intense monitoring on domestic flights since March. The result? Exactly none of these people, it was determined, posed any sort of risk. Indeed, dozens of air marshals have told the Boston Globe that the program not only tests the limits of the law, but is a waste of time and resources. And as Massachusetts Senator Ed Markey, a member of the Senate committee which recently held a hearing on the Quiet Skies program, said, quote, American travelers deserve to have their privacy and civil rights protected even 30,000 feet in the air. Quiet Skies is the very definition of Big Brother. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
It's time for Nicole Sandler's What's News from NicoleSandler.com and the Progressive Voices Network.
Florida's gubernatorial race turned ugly right out of the gate. The Trump-backed Republican candidate Ron DeSantis using racial dog whistles in one of his first statements about his opponent, Andrew Gillum, who would be the state's first African-American governor if elected.
You know, he is an articulate spokesman for those far-left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. And, you know, I watched those Democrat debates. None of that was my cup of tea, but I mean, he performed better than the other people there. So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state. That is not going to work. That's not going to be good for Florida. So I'm going to fight for what I believe in because I think I'm the guy who can really lead Florida in a good direction.
Gillum did appear on Fox with Shepard Smith and called DeSantis out.
It was the monkey this up part. Sir, your response.
Yeah, that part wasn't lost on me. It's very clear that Mr. DeSantis is taking a page directly from the campaign manual of Donald Trump. But I think he's got another thing coming to him. If he thinks that in today's day and age, Florida voters are going to respond to that level of derision and division, they're sick of it. What we're trying to offer in this race is a North Star for where we want to go as a state.
Was that racist or a figment of speech?
Well, in the handbook of Donald Trump, they no longer do whistle calls. They're now using full bullhorns.
And that was a bullhorn?
And what I've got to say about that is that we've got to make sure that we stay focused, I think, on the issues that confront everyday people. I'm not going to get down in the gutter with DeSantis and Trump. There's enough of that going on. I'm going to try and stay high and try to talk about what the North Star and the future is for the state of Florida and the people of this state. And I think that's what people want. They're just so sick of this divisive, derisive politics that have been coming out of Washington and has now infiltrated the politics of this state vis-a-vis Ron DeSantis.
White House counsel Don McGahn will step down from his role this fall. Trump made the announcement on Twitter and said McGahn's departure would take place, quote, shortly after the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court. According to the New York Times, Trump's tweet came as a surprise, especially to McGahn.
A top White House aide at the center of the Mueller probe, now on his way out.
Don McGahn's a really good guy. Been with me for a long time. Privately before this, he represented me. He's been here now. It'll be almost 2 years, and a lot of affection for Don.
Days after learning that White House counsel Don McGahn was interviewed by special counsel investigators for 30 hours, President Trump tweeting, McGahn will be leaving his position in the fall, shortly after the confirmation, hopefully, of Judge Brett Kavanaugh to the United States Supreme Court. I've worked with Don for a long time and truly appreciate his service.
Any concern about what he said to the Mueller?
No, not at all. Not at all. I knew he was going also, as you know, I had to approve it.
For 18 months, McGahn was a central figure in this White House's legal dramas.
I'm the one that has to walk into the Oval Office and advise the president on various recommendations.
McGahn leading the effort to fill the federal bench with Trump-picked conservative nominees, spearheading the search for 2 Supreme Court picks, and navigating a slew of controversies. Trump enlisted McGahn in a failed effort to stop Attorney General Jeff Sessions from recusing himself from the Russia probe. And McGahn once refused Trump's order to direct the Justice Department to fire Mueller, according to a person familiar with the matter. These episodes catching the attention of the special counsel, who is investigating Russian meddling and possible obstruction of justice.
An independent analysis published Tuesday estimated that Hurricane Maria killed 2,975 people after it hit Puerto Rico last September, up from the previous official death toll of 64. During a White House event Wednesday where the president was announcing a grant for drug-free communities, reporters asked about aid for Puerto Rico. Trump repeated his previous assessment that the federal government did a, quote, fantastic job in Puerto Rico.
And don't forget, their electric plant was dead before the hurricane. If you look back on your records, you'll see that plant was dead, it was shut, it was bankrupt, it was out of business. They owed tremendous amounts of money. They had it closed up. And then when the hurricane came, people said, what are we going to do about electricity? That wasn't really the hurricane. That was gone before the hurricane. But we've put a lot of money and a lot of effort into Puerto Rico. And I think most of the people in Puerto Rico really appreciate what we've done.
San Juan Mayor Carmen Yulin Cruz spoke with MSNBC's Ali Velshi.
It's a lie. He just simply is lying through his teeth. We had issues of generation, but, this is what he's doing. He's trying to appease his own mind and his soul, if he has one, about this 2,975 deaths by saying, you know what? It is a fault of the people of Puerto Rico. No, we had electricity before Maria came. Maybe he doesn't know that Irma came 15 days before that and really hit us because, he thought he was being so bright by telling us that we are an island surrounded by water, lots and lots of water, ocean water. So what the president is doing is not only undignified, but it's unbecoming of the president of the United States.
And that's just a bit of what's news for now. I'm Nicole Sandler. If you appreciate these reports and the Nicole Sandler Show, I hope you'll consider making a contribution. My work is 100% listener supported, and I can't do it without your help. Find out more at NicoleSandler.com/donate.
From UN headquarters in New York, I'm Luke Vargas with your World in 2 minutes. This broadcast is on holiday until September 10th, but instead of running repeats, we've asked some go-to foreign policy experts what they'll be paying attention to in the weeks to come. Mary Lovely is a non-resident senior fellow at the Peterson Institute for International Economics and is watching how an ongoing tariff war between the United States and China could adversely impact the United States.
It really has to do with decreasing the competitiveness of U.S. businesses. So yes, consumers will be hit, and that will take a bite out of household budgets, and it will also probably lead to less variety or fewer choices for American consumers as some kind of marginal products are priced out of the market entirely. But the longer-term issue, the more concerning issue in terms of decreases in productivity growth through the U.S. is what's happening with the loss of China as a major supplier of industrial goods.
Lovely says American businesses and lobbyists who initially stayed quiet when Trump first imposed tariffs are now becoming more vocal and inserting their opinions into ongoing hearings about future tariffs.
Most of us really respond to stories of individual companies, whether it's the company that assembles television sets in the U.S. that is being hurt by tariffs on those inputs, or window manufacturers are being hurt by tariffs that are on inputs to their manufacturing process, while, whole imports of windows are not. Or the Home Builders Association saying, hey, tariffs on softwood lumber or on all these other inputs, including steel and aluminum, but also things we get from China, these are really driving up the cost of new homes for people. I think this is getting across to Americans.
I'm Luke Vargas at the United Nations. For more global news headlines, visit talkmedianews.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, folks. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life while it lasts. Could be the last supper of, I don't know, diversity. I hate this guy. I hate him so much. And it's not, a knee-jerk hate. It's been long studied. Alrighty. Well, let's begin with weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River and the Rogue River Valley of southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 55 degrees. And looks like we're going to be a tad cooler today than yesterday. It looks like we're going to be in the low 80s. And that would be nice. Overnight low of the mid-50s, which is essentially what it was last night, though it felt a little bit more like the upper 50s where I am at. Right now we're fair with a little, actually no clouds, though it says that they're somewhere, just not where I can see. And winds are a negligible 1 mile per hour out of the southwest. Will be picking up in a few hours to their usual clip this time of year of 5 to 10 miles per hour, but shifted out of the west-northwest. Then later on this evening, it will shift out of the northwest, continuing at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Looks like we're going to be in the low 80s tomorrow as well, so it looks like we're getting the nice summer weather as we slide into fall. Wow. Okay. Earlier, we had a small chance percentage of precipitation, but now that is to 0. So we went from 10% to 0. Darn. Grass pollen is low. The air quality index is at 63 parts per million. A lot better. The smoke blew in yesterday and then it pretty much blew out. So we didn't have any red sun this morning and we didn't have a red moon. As the sun was coming up. So those are good signs as far as I'm concerned. The daytime UV index is at high, at 7. Pressure is falling at 29.91 inches. Visibility is at 8 miles. And that relative humidity is at 71%. Okay. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 68 and partly cloudy. Paris is 68 and cloudy. Rome is 82 and sunny. Kiev is 76 and fair. Kabul is 78 and fair. Hong Kong is 77 degrees with rain. Tokyo is 83 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 52 and partly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 60 degrees and cloudy. And New York is 84 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny, with a heat advisory. You're getting a lot of those now, so be careful. Stay cool, New York, and that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Geddes of Raw Story brings us this first offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. Special Counsel Robert Mueller and the FBI are investigating 2 suspicious financial transactions by the Russian embassy around the 2016 election and shortly after Donald Trump's inauguration. Those transactions go along with the unusual financial activity involving the embassy, including a $29,000 wire transfer to finance the 2016 election, $325,000 in payments to the Russian Cultural Center in Washington, and $2.4 million paid to home improvement companies controlled by a Russian immigrant. American bank examiners flagged the two transactions that have now fallen under investigation into Russian election interference. The first was a $120,000 payment to then-Ambassador Sergei Kislyak that was twice as large as any he'd received in the previous 2 years. The check, which came 10 days after the 2016 election, was marked payroll, and Kislyak deposited the money into his Citibank account and then wired the money to his account in Russia in two $60,000 installments. The second transaction came 5 days after Donald Trump's inauguration in January of 2017. A Citibank relationship manager blocked that attempt to withdraw $150,000 in cash because he feared it was meant for Russians the U.S. had just expelled as punishment for the election interference. Now, I got hammered. I know they were mostly bots, but I got hammered by Russian bots, Bernie bro trolls, Brexit aficionados. It was like from all over the world. And the main theme was that there's no evidence that Russians were ever involved. And, of course, they talk about money laundering. Oh, yeah, money laundering. Of course, we're not talking about money laundering. Yeah, we are. We're talking about money laundering for Russians, oligarchs, mobsters. That's what we're talking about. And Putin's the biggest one. Well, he's not the biggest one. He actually has to kick up his money to somebody above him who made him who he is today. Embassy officials refused to provide the bank official with the names of the Russians the payments were intended for, and they would not say why they needed the cash in the U.S. if the employees had already gone back to their home country. Follow the rubles.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle. C'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Matthew Chapman of Alternate brings us this last offering here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays, folks. In the midst of the colossal upset that saw progressive African-American Tallahassee Mayor Andrew Gillum win the Democratic nomination for the Florida governor race, another lesser-known but huge development unfolded in Oklahoma, giving Democrats a clear chance to win the governor's mansion there. In the runoff election on Tuesday night, pro-Trump businessman Kevin Stitt defeated Oklahoma City Mayor Mick Cornett to win the GOP nomination. He will now face off against former Democratic State Attorney General Drew Edmondson, who already won the nomination in June, which is shaping up to be a truly competitive race. Republicans blew a huge potential advantage by not nominating Cornett, who has campaign experience and is known for bringing the NBA to his state. Stitt, by contrast, has never held elected office, faces questions about his mortgage company's business practices, and said he opposes the badly needed recent pay increases that ended the state's teacher walkouts. Edmondson, by contrast, is the Democrats' dream candidate, a Vietnam veteran who has already won statewide office multiple times and has decent name recognition. One poll released in July showed Edmondson leading the race by 1 point, with Stitt as the nominee. Yikes. Okay. Oklahoma, of course, is one of the reddest states in America because they're Sooners. It is one of only 2 states where Donald Trump carried every single county, but Democrats have held the governor's mansion as recently as 2011. Republicans in Oklahoma are also reeling from voter resentment amid the massive unpopularity of retiring Governor Mary Fallin, who oversaw reckless tax cuts that collapsed the state's finances and crippled state agencies. The teacher strikes only scratched the surface. Under Fallin's tenure, rural hospitals have been shuttered. Waiting lists for community help for the elderly and disabled have stretched to 10 years. And there is even a driving limit on state troopers to ration fuel. Well, if they had anything to steal in Oklahoma, I guess it all works out. If you're really poor and you don't have anything for anyone to steal, they're not going to come there, so you got to ration the cops gasoline. In an anonymous sign for Republicans, Tuesday night's runoffs also saw the defeat of a half a dozen GOP state lawmakers who voted against the tax increase to fund teacher pay, which cannot inspire confidence for a gubernatorial nominee who claimed he would not have signed it. The upshot is that Democrats have a real chance to win in a heavily red state and punch deep into Trump territory. They should heed the anger of voters hurt by GOP misrule and fight for them. And indeed fight. And, none of this wishy-washy centrist stuff of like, oh, well, maybe we can reach across the aisle. No. Campaign against Trump. Campaign against the incompetence. Campaign against the corruption. Campaign as if your life depended on it. Because it does. The life of this great experiment. And I have to say it must endure, and it will, if we decided to do so. All right, well, we're going to meet up tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life, and we're going to have at least 2 French 77s tomorrow. Let's get plastered. It's Labor Day, all right? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Labor, and then, alleviate the pain. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Well, there's lots more news breaking on Netroots Radio right now as we speak, so stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night, and we will visit with you tomorrow in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, l'âge tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin. Ba-da-da-dum-dee-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-dee-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.